What is up, Buffalo fanatics? Z-Bot here with you, live on the Buffalo Fanatics YouTube channel on a Victory Monday night. And that, of course, can only mean one thing. It is the smoke break. So good to have you in. Fresh off a massive bounce back W for our Buffalo Bills in Week 11. A 40 burger by the Buffalo Bills in the throwback unis. A 6-touchdown performance from 17 as the Buffalo Bills beat the Tampa Bay Bucs 44-32. to improve to 7-3 and remain in the mix of an ever-growing, ever-insane AFC playoff picture. The NFL right now, the definition of insanity on both sides of the coin, the AFC and the NFC. The Buffalo Bills remain in the thick of things in a massive win. You come off of that game against the Miami Dolphins, and the Buffalo Bills had to prove that that was a fluke. They had to bounce back against a team that was in the divisional round last year, a team threatening to win their own division, a team that has an MVP caliber quarterback, a team that's played like one of the better teams in the NFL. The Buffalo Bills had to prove to themselves, the league, and to us that they could bounce back off of one of the worst losses, perhaps the worst loss since Josh Allen and Sean McDermott have been at the helm of this organization. And they did so in a wild roller coaster of a game. 44-32 in one of the more exciting and fun to watch games of the entire season. And it's great that the Buffalo Bills were on the winning end of it. You go to week 1, that game against Baltimore might be the game of the year. The Bills on the winning end of that one. You look at this game, a high-flying shootout, points in abundance. You wind up finishing this game with nearly 80 total points on the scoreboard. And the Bills, who have had an offense that has been, up until this point, a bit conservative, and despite the amount of points they score per game, it's been an offense that you look at and you're not necessarily sure if they have the ability to be what we've seen in years past, high flying in the pass game, the ability to score points quickly, the ability to answer instantly. This game proved a lot about a Buffalo Bills team that had not shown us a whole lot of what we saw on Sunday afternoon. The question is, will this continue? Will they build on this? Will this be a launching pad for Josh Allen and this pass offense to continue to build towards January and be able to unleash some of what we saw against Tampa Bay in Week 11? So good to have you in as you're all pouring into the chat here. Great to see everyone as always. Laura, Richie Fresh, Koala, Jake, Mark, so many of you pouring in. Before we dive into the game, I once again want to thank everybody for the just overwhelming amount of love and support for Caroline and I and our new baby girl, Zoe. So many of you have been along since the beginning when we first announced that we were having our baby. I know so many were anticipating he or she's arrival because we did not know what the gender was going to be. We found out in real time, and it was so great to be able to go on that journey together in a way and have you guys meet Zoe on the post-game show yesterday. I'm sure many of you saw Zoe be initiated into the mafia with the table breaking over on my Twitter. But so many people reached out either in the comments section or DMs, and I just can't tell you how much that means. It's just extraordinary. The community we have here is second to none. You guys know that, but I always want to make sure I reiterate just how awesome you guys are and just how much that means to us, to Caroline and I. And it was so, it was overwhelming, really, to have the amount of love and support that you guys brought to us this past week. And we couldn't be happier. It's been an amazing week. Yeah, it really has. Just an insane week where, you know, in one moment you're living your life, the next moment you're living a whole different life. You know, one moment you're Z-Bot, and the next moment you're dad. It's crazy. But the week was capped off, an amazing week was capped off with an amazing W. The Buffalo Bills had to have this one. And in a weird way, I'm still clinging on to that loss to the Miami Dolphins. I don't know how you guys feel. This win did not erase what I saw against Miami in week 10. I think it'll go a long way if the Bills on a short week here. We're just a couple of days away, 3 days removed from the Buffalo Bills taking on the best passing defense in the NFL, maybe the best overall defense in the NFL, and the Houston Texans on the road in prime time on Thursday Night Football. It'll go a long way towards kind of getting that taste out of my mouth from the Miami game if the Bills are able to go to 8-3 and win that football game. This certainly helped too. Obviously helped a lot more than it would have if the Bills were on the losing end of things here. That goes without saying. But that Miami game was so bad. I mean, I'm not overstating it when I say that loss, to me, 2 losses come to mind, or maybe 3. 3 losses come to mind when I'm thinking about the Josh Allen, Sean McDermott era of the Buffalo Bills. The loss to the Urban Meyer coached Jacksonville Jaguars team. Not only was that one of the worst losses ever, that was one of the worst games ever. Like literally one of the worst games ever. That's up there. That might be number 1. Bills Colts, where Jonathan Taylor had maybe 500 yards. It was the last time that the Bills had lost by that differential. It probably until I couldn't even tell you. It was one of the worst. It was in terms of point differential. It might be still the worst loss that the Bills have had since Josh Allen's rookie year. And then that Miami game. I mean, when you factor in how bad Miami has been, you factor in that they fired their GM that week, 2 wins on the season. The Bills are nearly a double-digit road favorite. They had just traded away one of their best defensive players. They had numerous defensive starters out. They have Tyreek Hill on IR. You factor that in, and to lose, not just, the game, but to lose the way that you did. Really just get dominated. You don't score a single point until the fourth quarter. You lose by 17 to a team that you have not only dominated, but really when you look across the NFL, there really hasn't been a team over the time span in which Josh Allen has been drafted. There really hasn't been one team that has owned another team quite like the Bills have owned the Miami Dolphins. And to lose the way that they did, in the fashion that they did, and the way that they looked in that loss, just top to bottom, it doesn't get much worse. You had to go out in this Tampa Bay game and answer the call for a variety of reasons. One, your season's on the line every week here. You're chasing New England the rest of the way. And let's face it, that loss might have put the nail in the coffin on the Bills being able to win their 6th consecutive AFC East title. You go over on the playoff simulator right now. You really gotta, go out of your way to predict the Buffalo Bills winning the AFC East. You got to notch a couple of bad losses for New England, and you basically have to predict the Buffalo Bills to run the table. Now, Sean McDermott and Josh Allen, they've been extraordinary in December. Anything's possible. They play like they did Sunday offensively, they'll beat anybody, right? You put up 44 points, unless you're the Cincinnati Bengals, more often than not, you're winning the football game. But you're also going to have New England lose multiple games, and more than likely, you're going to have them lose a divisional game, whether that be to the Miami Dolphins or the New York Jets. They took on the Jets on Thursday Night Football. Justin Fields just got benched, so maybe there's a better chance of that happening down the line with Tyrod Taylor, but the Jets are the Jets, and you don't want to rely on that. And I think when we're sitting around kind of looking in the mirror trying to come to terms with reality, I think if you are a level-headed person, the idea of the Bills regaining the stranglehold on the AFC East seems pretty far-fetched. But you still have a chance, and you have to continue to win football games to remain in the realm of having that chance. And they had to have this game against Tampa Bay. To me, the difference between 7-3 and 6-4, it feels big, especially on a short week here, going against the team you've struggled against, going against one of the better defenses in the NFL on the road. You just had to respond after losing the way that you did to Miami. And it felt like early on in this Tampa Bay game, it felt like there wasn't going to be a response, right? I mean, you come out, Josh Allen throws that chest pass, INT, and you're thinking, oh man, Is this just who the Buffalo Bills are? Is this going to be the 2025 version of the Buffalo Bills where they just sputter, where they just completely lose control and they tailspin here? But you watch the progression of the game unfold, and it wound up resulting in one of the more topsy-turvy, yin-yang, just wild roller coaster of a ride type games that we've seen. And in terms of Josh Allen's performance, that certainly fits the bill as well. Just a wild game, really. And early on, you were kind of white knuckling it, and you were so for the majority of the football game. And then late, the Buffalo Bills were able to dot their I's and cross their T's and get out of here, not just with a W, but they wound up winning this one by double digits. And you got to give credit in all of the different areas in which allowed them to get to that point. Josh Allen, of course, which we'll talk about primarily in this episode, the return game, the special teams game. The special teams in this game, the most underrated aspect of the Buffalo Bills victory in Week 11. And that's not hyperbole. I mean, seriously, what they did in the kick return game, it was uncanny. It felt like every single time Tampa Bay kicked the ball off, the Bills were finding a way to get that ball out to at least the 40. Oftentimes, it felt like they were getting it to the 45 or midfield. This, to me, went a long way towards the Bills being able to score 44 points with only 24 minutes of time of possession. This game was so weird in so many ways beyond watching Josh Allen and thinking to yourself, 1 minute you're like, what is he doing? And then the next minute you're like, oh my God, this is one of the greatest players I've ever seen play the sport. The Bills won a game in which they lost the turnover battle and turned it over 3 times. They won a game in which they trailed the opponent in time of possession by 10 minutes. They won a game where they muffed a kick. Josh Allen throws 2 picks. They won a game where they allowed the opponent to rush for over 200 yards. They won a game where they allowed a third-string undrafted running back to channel his inner Jim Brown and do whatever he wanted. And throughout this whole experience, they scored 44 points and won by 2 touchdowns. Really tough one to wrap your mind around, but it was a fun one at that. And you're sitting here wondering, you are now officially, 2/3 of the way through the season or just about there. Do you know who the Buffalo Bills are? Do they know who they are? I mean, if you ask yourself right now, who are the Buffalo Bills? I don't know. On any given week, I'm getting one of the best D fronts in the league. And then on other weeks, I'm getting a team that really couldn't contain Baker Mayfield and his legs in Week 11. I'm getting a team that can't stop the run. But then you go out against Rico Dowdle and Chuba Hubbard, and you're somehow able to shut them down. And they went into that game as maybe the best running offense in the league. You're getting games where the Bills' offense moves methodically down the field, but it's very uninspiring, right? It's just kind of slow, and it's very dink and dunk, and it's not very exciting. And you're wondering if they have a passing offense. You're watching them, and you're thinking to yourself, can this Bills team throw the football down the field? Can they complete a pass that isn't within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage? And then you're watching games like the Kansas City game, or you're watching games like the Tampa Bay Bucks game or the Baltimore Ravens game, and you're thinking, man, like they can do whatever they want in the pass game. And then you look at the running game, and you're thinking this is maybe the best running offense in the entire NFL. But then you go against Tampa Bay, and you're like, well, they can't run the football in this game, but yet they found a way to win. And up until this point, they really weren't able to do that. So there's just a ton going on here, and I don't think we can define who Buffalo is. But luckily for us, and I think for any fan of any team right now, I don't think it's ever been this open. And we'll talk about that throughout the show here, because I don't know. I really wouldn't know who to put my money on right now in terms of a Super Bowl prediction on both sides. I think if the Eagles play defense the way that they did on Sunday Night Football against Detroit, they might repeat. They had Jared Goff looking like me out there. I think at one point he was 2 of 18 down the stretch. That is insane. I mean, you can just dump the ball off to a running back out of the backfield 3 times and have a better stat line. I'm watching the Seahawks, who I thought, maybe going into Sunday might have been the best team in the NFL. Sam Darnold throws 4 picks, and they still got a game-winning field goal attempt off. It didn't go in, but they still had a chance. On the winning end of that game is the LA Rams, who I think might be maybe the best team in the NFL right now. They have their argument. That's just the NFC side of things, though. We'll worry about that when we get to the Super Bowl. You look at the AFC side of things, the Denver Broncos right now would be your 1 seed. Would you have confidence in placing one single dollar on that offense being able to win 3 games to win a Super Bowl? I know they're 9-2, and that defense is on pace to break the single season sack record. It's an extraordinary defense. They're going to have to win the bowl or win playoff games on the back of that defense and that defense alone. Bo Nix's passer rating right now is worse than Justin Fields. You might look at Denver and think that they have a solid team because of Bo Nix. They have a solid team because they have an all-time defense as it stands right now. If you've watched Denver in any capacity this season, they are a brutal watch offensively. And I just don't think, as good as that defense is, and mind you, if you're a fan of any other team than Buffalo and you're watching this, I genuinely think this. I think anybody's got a chance right now. Anybody. As bad as the Bills have looked at times, as good as they've looked, you can make that argument for pretty much any team in the NFL. The Eagles against Detroit on Sunday Night Football, it's as good of a defensive performance as I've seen all year. That same team got dismantled by the New York Giants about a month ago in primetime, right? The LA Chargers, you're thinking they're going to have a good year this year. Another year with Harbaugh, draft Amari and Hampton, whatever, injuries suffered, whatever. You go into week 11 and they got destroyed by Jacksonville. You're looking at the Indianapolis Colts, where they've looked like one of the best teams in the league, but all of a sudden that Daniel Jones resurgence seems to be coming back to the mean a little bit, where he's shown shades of that New York Giants version of the Indianapolis or of Daniel Jones that we haven't seen since he's joined the Colts. The Kansas City Chiefs. Folks, they're 5-5. I mean, you want to talk about having to do a song and dance to get the Bills to win the AFC East in terms of working the back ends of these playoff simulators. You got to do a full halftime routine to find a way to get Kansas City into the playoffs. They're 5-5. I mean, I can't get over it, and it doesn't get any easier. They got to play the Indianapolis Colts off a bye this upcoming week. They got to play that Broncos team again. They got a tough stretch down the road here. They're 5-5. They're 0-5. 0-5 in one-score games. They were 12-0 in them a season ago. You think the Bills don't have a chance to win the AFC East? The Chiefs quite literally have, I don't even know what it is. What is it? 0.1% chance maybe to win the West? They're 4.5 games behind Denver now. I mean, they're cooked. So you're talking about what could happen here. Mind you, the Chiefs could sneak in and win it again, for all I know. Would you put it past them? All they've done every year since Mahomes has been the starter is gotten to the AFC Championship and taken it to overtime. It's the worst they've done. So you can't put it past them. But my whole point here is that I have never been more sure of being unsure in my life when it comes to looking at the NFL landscape right now. I have no clue. I mean, if you were to tell me, if you were to transport into the future and come back and tell me that the Super Bowl wound up being the Pittsburgh Steelers and I don't know, the Carolina Panthers, part of me would believe you. That's the way it's looked this year. I mean, that's just the way it has looked. I don't think one team necessarily has an edge over another. It's never been more week to week. The NFL is the most week-to-week sport where you'll have one narrative. I mean, this past week's the most perfect example. You got the Bills losing by 17 to the Miami Dolphins. They follow that game up within 1 week. They weren't able to score a point against the Dolphins until the fourth quarter. They score 44 against Tampa Bay and win by double digits. That's within 1 week. Like, you've never been more sure of being unsure in your life. And this is why, based on what I've seen from Buffalo right now, does it look like a team that I would throw money at to win the whole thing? Based on what we've seen from the whole body of work? Probably not. because I don't think you can trust them based on how all over the place it has been. Yes, 10 games, 7 of them are victories, but there's been very little consistency in how they've gotten those victories. And what's more consistent seems to be the things that you're not in love with, like the run defense, for instance, or the inability to throw the football. Then again, though, find me the team right now that you're going to make the argument has everything figured out, and you are more than confident in the ability for them to go the distance and win the whole thing. I think every single team within the playoff picture right now has a legitimate argument. I really do. And this is why, to me, right now, with these Buffalo Bills, why not this year? Why not? Why not? All you got to do is find a way to give me what I saw against Carolina, what I saw against Kansas City, what I saw against Tampa Bay. You go into January and you pull out a game against Miami, you're toast. I don't care who you're playing, because you played one of the worst teams in the NFL in the Miami Dolphins, and you got routed. So you pull that out of your bag against any single one of these teams that makes the playoffs. I don't care who it is, you're losing. But you give me shades of that Chiefs game, that Panthers game, that Bucks game, they're beating anybody. The question is, what's it going to be? And I don't think you can necessarily predict it. But the one thing that I do know is that when they get into the postseason, that's when Josh Allen, which is insane to say because he's incredible in the regular season, the guy is even more incredible in the postseason. And this is where, when I look at a team like the Denver Broncos, that defense is good enough to win the whole thing. But do you trust Bo Nix, despite how great that defense is? Do you trust Bo Nix in that offense, who's been struggling mightily, to say the least, to go the distance? Do you trust the Indianapolis Colts with Daniel Jones to go the distance? Jonathan Taylor, Offensive Player of the Year. I think they have an incredible football team. Do you trust it? And you can make this argument, and I'm not just calling these teams out. You can make this argument down the line. Do you trust the Bills' run D? Do you trust their pass offense? The Chiefs, do you trust them to win a one-score football game if they end up getting in? The Ravens, do you trust them? The ability to win in the postseason. They have not proven to be able to beat the top-tier teams in the postseason. Buffalo, Kansas City, they just haven't been able to do it. Who do you buy into? Who do you believe in? And I think that there's a solid argument for just about anybody. And then there, of course, is the New England Patriots. We all thought they were going to have a bounce-back year, I think. I don't think we thought it was going to be like this. And I think that they're in the driver's seat for the 1 seed. I mean, if I had to put my money on a team that's going to end up being the 1 seed, it would be New England. In order for the Buffalo Bills to surpass them and do what we all wanted them to do this year and get the 1 seed, they'd have to lose to Cincinnati this week. They'd have to lose to Buffalo, of course, and they'd have to lose to Baltimore. And then in that span, the Bills would pretty much have to run the table. And that would mean victories over Houston on Thursday night here, and the Philadelphia Eagles, the Pittsburgh Steelers, the New England Patriots, of course, again, the team that they've already lost to. Now, to that point, New England, 9-2, an unbelievable year. I think they're coasting right now to the 1 seed. Do you trust a second-year player in Drake May, despite how great he's been? Do you anticipate that going the distance? You can make the argument, certainly, that he could. He's been phenomenal. I think he's second right now behind Allen in the MVP voting. But my whole point here is I just think that it's just wide the hell open. It's wide the hell open. And I think in years past you would say this, but I think it was narrowed down to a couple of teams. I mean, even last year, I think you looked at it and it felt like it was Baltimore and Buffalo and Kansas City. So I look at this season and I really would not be stunned if it was anybody. Any of these teams. And that goes for the NFC too, really. I could see it being Philadelphia. I could see it being Seattle. I could see it being Detroit. I could see it being the Rams. So it's a wild, wild year. And the Buffalo Bills have certainly been a massive part of how wild this season has been. Koala's coming in, but new playoff teams have not done well in their playoff runs in recent years. New England hasn't been there since 2021. They haven't proved it yet. And that's the thing. I mean, who has? And that's and then the crazy thing too is if New England or if the Chiefs don't get in, then then nobody's proven anything. Because it's pretty much exclusively been the Kansas City Chiefs. So if the Chiefs don't get in, I mean, it's just open season in terms of teams that haven't really proved the ability to do it because it's only been Kansas City. Jeremy's saying, I think the Rams will go all the way. I think if I had to put money on a team in the NFC right now, it would either be the Rams or the Eagles. And if I had to predict an NFC championship, I think that's what I would go with. I think that's what it would be if I had to predict it right now. But there's certainly teams on the outside that wouldn't shock me. I mean, I watched Seattle, 4 interceptions in that football game, and they lose by 2 points. You know, you throw 4 interceptions, you're usually getting destroyed. I mean, they had an opportunity to win that football game as time expired. Mark saying, you don't listen to anybody but yourself talking nonstop. Well, that's typically how a podcast works when I'm the only one with the microphone and there's nobody else on here. Typically, when you host a show by yourself and you have a microphone and a camera and an audience, you talk. And that's how it usually works. So if that's not what you're looking for, I'm sorry, Mark, you might be in the wrong spot. Richie coming in with the super chat. Super Bowl odds, Rams plus 550, Eagles plus 600, then the Bills plus 850. Saw that, Richie. So right now the Bills, despite what you've seen from them up until this point, the Buffalo Bills have the best betting odds to win the Super Bowl in the AFC. Currently, the favorite to win is out of the NFC, and I think that might be fair. I think that with the Rams and the Eagles, and I'm glad you're bringing this up, Richie, because those two teams, to me, that would probably be my 1 and 2 right now. Those two teams should probably be favored based on what we've seen. And you look on the – so somebody's got to play them. Somebody's got to play them. And right now the Buffalo Bills are favored to do that. It's just I cannot get over this year and what it has been, and it hasn't dissipated. I mean, every week I'm feeling this, even more so than ever. Like as the weeks go on, it just feels like it continues to compound. Where I'm like, and it's mainly because our Buffalo Bills have just been in the thick of things. Where I have the 2-game skid before the bye after starting 4-0, and then you come off the bye and you beat the Panthers by scoring 40. Then you put the best performance of the year on display against Kansas City, and then you put one of the worst displays you've put on the field in 8 years against Miami. And then you follow that up by once again, another unbelievable fireworks show against Tampa Bay. I mean, it's just been lunacy. You look at last year and it was awfully consistent when you really get down to it. After they lost to Baltimore and Houston, the Bills pretty much would go on to score 30 plus points every single game and win every single game. Other than the LA Rams game where they still went absolutely nuclear. Josh Allen had one of the best performances of his career, and they just couldn't get a stop on the other end. But it was pretty consistent. Every week, you were pretty much getting the same thing. A top-tier Josh Allen performance, no turnovers, no sacks, 30-plus points, and a victory. And the losses that you did have, all 3 of them came against teams that wound up making it to the divisional round of the playoffs. Not including the end of the year loss where they rested their starters. You know, this year you lost to an Atlanta Falcons team who has not won since beating you. I can't get over that one. Because Atlanta in that game, they looked really good. Bijan Robinson looked incredible. Drake London looked incredible. And Michael Penix just did what he had to do in order to win the football game. Penix is out for the year now. They haven't won a game since. You looked at what that team showed you in that first half against Buffalo, and that team has not won. So you lose to that team. They're not sniffing the playoffs. You lose to Miami. They're not sniffing the playoffs. And then, yeah, I think right now you're sitting here. You don't have any shame in losing to the New England Patriots. They have the best record in football right now. You don't feel good snapping your historic home win streak to that team in prime time. But I don't think there's any shame in losing to that team with how good they've been. The other two, there's a lot of shame in those losses. And that's what's different about last year, where all of your losses were against quality opponents. This year, you have 1 loss against a quality opponent. Richie coming in with another super chat. This is the 1 year I don't mind a wild card spot. It needs to be said, the Pats have a cupcake rest of the way. They'll get humble soon. Bills winning Super Bowl 60. I mean, a wild card spot is what you're going to need to get comfortable with, I think. Unless something extraordinary happens here, you're going to need to see a pretty drastic fall off from the Patriots. You're going to need to see an unbelievable run from the Buffalo Bills. The way it's looking right now, the Bills are pretty much a coin flip away from being the 5 seed. And that would mean a road wild card game. Something we're really not used to. Bills are usually playing at home in the wild card. I've ran simulations where the Bills can lose one more game, go 13-4, and still be on the road wild card weekend. That's how top heavy the AFC is right now, from 1 all the way down to 7. And that's how much it sucks to not win your division. Because the Patriots, with their cupcake schedule, as Richie's referring to, they really could go 14-3. And even if they went 13-4, they'd have the tiebreaker over Buffalo. Because that would mean that they've won all their divisional games except for one against the Bills, should they beat them. So you can lose one more game and still be on the road wild card weekend with the 5 seed. That's just the type of year it is. Richie back in saying, still going to be Bills, Chiefs, AFC champ and buff. It would be insane. I mean, the way we're looking at it right now, that would pretty much mean the Bills would be on the road wild card weekend, divisional round, and then be home for the AFC championship. How insane would that be? But would you put it past the, would you rule it out at this point? Would you rule that out with how crazy the year has been? DEOASF with a chat. Just a nice, simple chat, no message. If you have a message for me, DEO, let me know, but I appreciate the super chat nonetheless. So let's talk Bills Bucks. That was just an insane game. And let's talk Josh Allen in particular here, because as you're watching the football game, you couldn't help but think, is this a great performance or is this a bad performance? Is it somewhere in the middle? What is this? Now that I've had about 24 hours to reflect on it, here's what it is. What Josh Allen did against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers is exactly what this Buffalo Bills team needs right now. They had no identity in the pass game other than a dump off to Khalil Shakir and, a couple of passes around the line of scrimmage, hoping to move the ball down the field, dink and dunk, and hopefully you score off of a 7-minute drive or so. What we saw on Sunday was the 2022 version of Josh Allen reincarnated. It was unleashed. And this is what this team needs right now. When you've had so many questions surrounding your pass game, when you've had so many questions surrounding your wide receivers and their impact on the team, when you've had so many questions on Josh Allen and how good he's really been this season, you needed to see the ability to uncork it, take the top off of this thing and kind of just go nuts like they did against Tampa. They have not done that really at all, other than the second half against the Baltimore Ravens in week 1, where they just, seriously, that was one of the more incredible performances we've ever seen. It was one of the more unbelievable comebacks we've ever seen. But other than that, all the way back to begin the year, we haven't seen much of it. What Josh Allen did on Sunday cannot be taken for granted. It was one of the best performances ever. The only other guy in the Super Bowl era to do what Josh Allen did on Sunday was Josh Allen. 3 touchdowns on the ground, 3 touchdowns through the air, 6 total touchdowns. And there's a clip of him after he gets into the end zone on one of his rushing touchdowns where he's laughing like the Joker. I don't know if you've seen this, but he's laughing like the Joker off of a pack of off of getting, sprayed with laughing gas. And after I watched that, I thought to myself, 17 might be back. Not that he wasn't here, because 17 won the MVP a season ago without needing to be a maniac. But this team right now feels like it needs the maniac version of Josh Allen. Almost like the symbiote version. Anybody in here a Spider-Man fan? Peter Parker, he does great as is, as the regular friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. But then he gets that symbiote suit, and he takes it up another level. Now, granted, when Spider-Man gets that symbiote suit, there's good and there's bad. The good is he's more powerful than ever. The strength is off the charts. He's got this anger, this vengeance that doesn't exist in the typical Spider-Man. The downside is, though, he doesn't think as clearly. He's not as rational. He does things that typical Spider-Man wouldn't do that winds up harming him. Now, as we know in the movies, the symbiote Spider-Man isn't the Spider-Man that you want swinging around the streets of Manhattan on a daily basis. More bad than good. But to me, there's no harm in Josh Allen getting a little dab of that symbiote on his jersey. And I think that's what we got on Sunday. I think all year long we've been getting friendly neighborhood Josh Allen. And I think Sunday against the Tampa Bay Bucs, you got a little dash of that symbiote black suit version of Josh Allen. Now, the thing is, you can't go all in on that. You can't just completely adopt the symbiote suit and become Venom. Because when you get to that point, well, then you're really walking down a dangerous alley where it could end up being your downfall. It could end up costing you, right? But when you mix the ability to have the good and when you have the patience Josh Allen's been able to exhibit like he did last year, the decision making, the high IQ, eliminating the turnovers, that's all great. But that has also come with a cost of being a little too risk adverse. I'm fine with Josh Allen throwing a couple of picks every now and then. What Josh Allen did in 2024 should probably be the outlier, because you're not going to be able to be one of the best quarterbacks on the planet routinely while still not turning the football over. And I think we can all agree here. You're going to sign up for 6 touchdowns any day of the week if the cost of it is also 2 interceptions. If the price to pay for 44 points and 6 touchdowns and 350 all-purpose yards from your quarterback is 2 interceptions, 2 pretty bad interceptions, I think we're all fitting the bill. I mean, the chest pass interception to start the game was horrid. And then 4th and 2, you got a wide open Ty Johnson on a swing route to the left. You ignore that. You throw it into double coverage. It gets tipped and picked. It's a bad decision, a bad throw. Then I'm looking at this game, though, and I got Josh Allen throwing a 50-yard dot to Tyrell Shavers on the run. That was a throw that maybe 3 people on the entire planet can make. I got a beautiful touch pass off the top to James Cook. I got 3 rushing touchdowns where the dude's running like the Tasmanian devil. I got him slinging the ball to Gabe Davis on a nice crosser. He's making an incredible catch and putting one on the money to Josh Palmer on another crosser. I think we got to be fine with Josh Allen being Josh Allen. Josh Allen in 2024 was a different version of Josh Allen, and we all loved it, and it was very successful when he won the MVP, and they made it all the way to the AFC Championship and lost by 3 points. This year is not that year, though. This is a different year. And up until this point, they have struggled offensively outside of being able to run the football. And all of a sudden, when I see Josh Allen kind of looking like he used to in years past, they put up 44 points, and he's got 6 touchdowns. He also threw 2 bad interceptions. It just feels like right now, this is what the Buffalo Bills need. They need Josh Allen to be Josh Allen. Can they find a way, though, as time progresses here throughout the season to incorporate that with the 2024 version? Can they blend them together? And not every game is going to be like Sunday in a good way, by the way. When I look at what the Bills did against the Bucs, to me, it's more impressive when you factor in that they were not able to run the football. They did not have Dalton Kincaid. They didn't have Keon Coleman, but I'm not going to sit here and act like that was some major destructive element to the foundation of this offense. But it's still something to note nonetheless. They didn't have their second round wide receiver. We'll talk about that in a second. But we're talking about a 44-point outing where Josh Allen had 6 total touchdowns, and James Cook, who is 30 yards shy of 1,000 yards right now heading into week 12. He only had 48 rushing yards on 16 carries. He was averaging 3 yards a clip. It was one of their toughest outings all year, maybe their toughest in the run game. So I'm without my number 1 pass catcher. I'm without the run game that's been maybe the best in the NFL all year. And I'm also looking at the numbers for Khalil Shakir, who has been, as of late, one of the staples of this passing game. Just getting him the ball in the flat or in space and allowing him to make a play. Khalil Shakir had 1 catch for -3 yards in this football game. So if I told you before the game, the Bills would go up against the Tampa Bay Bucs, a 6-3 team at the top of their division. If I told you that the Bills would have 48 yards from James Cook on the ground on 16 attempts. If I told you that Khalil Shakir would have one catch for -3 yards. If I told you that Dalton Kincaid did not play, Keon Coleman did not play, they turned the ball over 3 times. They had 10 minutes less time of possession, and they allowed 32 points. And they allowed the Tampa Bay Bucs to run for over 200 yards. There is not a soul that would have looked me in the face and said, oh, Buffalo definitely won that game, right? Oh, I could see where the Buffalo Bills won that game. They won by double digits. This is what makes it so much more impressive to me. And so I'm looking at that game yesterday, and I'm thinking about the Josh Allen experience that I'm witnessing, and it was awfully frustrating at times. I'm watching the chest pass INT. I'm watching the tip ball INT on 4th and 2 where he throws it into double coverage. I'm watching him miss a wide open Khalil Shakir on the left side of the field. I'm watching him miss a wide open Curtis Samuel on the right side of the field. I'm watching him miss a wide open Reggie Gilliam on a 2-point conversion. And I'm factoring all this in while I'm also watching him make insane play after insane play. And I'm thinking to myself, like, how good is this performance? And then I reflect and I let time go on and I think about the whole body of work. And then you realize all of those things that I just listed off would have done any other team in the league in that did not have the quarterback named Josh Allen. Every single thing I just listed off to you. 10 minutes less time of possession. A muffed punt. 200 yards allowed on the ground. 30-plus points allowed. 35 minutes time of possession. The Buffalo Bills, or any team for that matter, are losing that game 99 out of 100 times. The only way you win that football game is if you have an all-world quarterback performing at an all-world level. And despite the inefficiencies in that game and the mistakes, Josh Allen was all-worldly against the Tampa Bay Bucs. And this is where you're watching the game and you're frustrated with missing wide open receivers and you're frustrated with the INTs. But then you're watching all of the insanely amazing plays being made and the touchdown being scored after score after score after score. The Bills don't win that football game with anybody else. There's no other team that wins that football game in the league right now. The only reason you win that football game is because you have 17 man in the ship. And I found it to be that much more impressive doing it with all of the things that went wrong, not only on the defensive side of things where it felt like almost everything was going wrong in the run game and the inability to really get a stop. But it was so much more impressive to me, the ability for this offense to do what they did without so many of their primary playmakers being the guy. You score 44 points without top production from James Cook, with zero production from Khalil Shakir, with Dalton Kincaid not being available. Tyrell Shavers, 4 catches, 90 yards, a touchdown. Gabe Davis, 40 yards. I mean, in this game, you had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 pass catchers. And your top receivers, Tyrell Shavers, James Cook, Ty Johnson, Gabe Davis. And maybe the secret sauce has been uncovered against Tampa Bay. And I'll tell you one thing we witnessed in this game that I couldn't be more ecstatic about, and I've been waiting for it for the longest time, swinging the ball to your best playmakers. And on this football team, your best playmakers outside of Josh Allen are your running backs. You have a gifted receiving running back in Ty Johnson, and you have one of the best running backs in the league in James Cook. They never get him the ball. They never get him the ball in the pass game. In this game, you had James Cook and Ty Johnson both have a receiving touchdown, both have 60-plus yards receiving. There needs to be a hell of a lot more of that because you saw how beautiful it was. You did it in a variety of ways. You had the screen pass worked to perfection. You had the swing route or what would you even call it? The hook route going down the left side of the field to James Cook. That beautiful play action, going to the right side of the field on a short yardage, dumping it off to James Cook, letting him get the first down and go to work. When you don't have the most elite wide receiver core, why not get the ball in the hands of the guys that can make plays for you to supplement that? You saw it in this game. Josh Allen had 317 yards, and over 125 of them came from their running backs. I absolutely love it. And I'm looking at this game and the guys that stepped up. Tyrell Shavers, I couldn't be more ecstatic about it. This was a guy that I was rooting for so heavily in the preseason to make the team. I just loved what I saw from that guy. I love a guy who capitalizes on the opportunities given to him, especially when the odds are against him. Everybody loves an underdog. We're Buffalo Bills fans, for God's sakes. If you didn't love an underdog, you probably wouldn't be a Bills fan. And Tyrell Shavers is the definition of an underdog in this league. A guy that you're rooting for to make the team, and you're not entirely sure if he's going to, but he makes some extraordinary plays in the preseason. You're holding out hope. Is he going to make it? And he does. He makes the roster. And you go into the regular season, he just hasn't been given that many opportunities. Keon Coleman, benched. Dalton Kincaid, out. Khalil Shakir kind of taken out of this football game. Shavers, we're calling your number. And guess what? The guy who has stepped up to the call, the guy who has cashed in on every opportunity given to him, does so yet again in a major spot. Josh Allen calls his number. He winds up leading the team in receptions, yards, and gets in the end zone. How could you not be ecstatic about what Tyrell Shavers showed you against the Bucs? And this is why, we'll talk about this in a minute, but I don't know how you take reps away from that guy going into Thursday night. How do you take reps away from that guy? After the Keon Coleman situation and after what you saw from Shavers, how do you look that guy in the face and take reps away from him? I don't care if you were drafted number 1 overall or if you were working at a Subway last week. If you are giving me the best production possible on my football team out on the field on Sunday, Thursday, Monday night, whenever, that's what I want out there. That's what I want out there, point blank. I don't give a damn. I don't care about the investment made. I don't care about the money spent. I don't care about your status. I don't care about your popularity. I don't care about anything. I care about what you're doing for me between the yard lines on the gridiron. I care about what you're doing with the opportunities given to you. And Tyrell Shavers has pretty much had 0 opportunity this year. How many targets did he even have going into this football game? But in a game where he was basically called upon to be the guy, what do you know? Cash is in. Cash is in. And this was this to me, like, it makes you wonder what you're going to see moving forward. I want to talk about Gabe Davis for a second. So this is Gabe Davis's first game back after rejoining the Buffalo Bills. 3 catches, 40 yards. I mean, this isn't a day you're writing home to mom about. Here's why I'm excited about Gabe Davis, though. Right off the bat, his first catch back with Buffalo was an extraordinary catch. It was a slant route for maybe 12 yards. Once again, you're not writing home to mama about it. Go back and watch that catch, though. Josh Allen throws at about 150 miles an hour. It is completely covered like glue. Beautiful catch. The one thing we have to keep in mind, the Buffalo Bills never wanted to get rid of Gabe Davis. Brandon Beane didn't want to move off of Gabe Davis. It was just a financial casualty. Gabe Davis had been such a good enough wide receiver, too, for this team that he had earned the ability to max out on a contract or get to as close to a max as he was ever going to get to a dollar amount that you hope your whole lifetime winds up coming on the table. And the Bills just were not in position to pay it. The Bills right now are one of the more cap-strapped teams in the NFL. They were not in position to pay Gabe Davis the amount of money that Jacksonville wind up coming to the table with. But in a perfect world where the salary cap doesn't exist and Brandon Beane can keep whoever he wants whenever he wants, Gabe Davis would never have left this football team. Gabe Davis had one of the better rapports with Josh Allen that he's had in his entire career. Gabe Davis has made some of the biggest plays off the arm of Josh Allen since this team drafted Josh Allen. And Gabe Davis was one of the more Gabe Davis was one of the more go-to guys Josh Allen has had in his career since joining the team. But when you have the Jacksonville Jaguars coming to the table willing to pay that money, when you have the Bills in the financial situation that they're in, it's a business. But in a world where the Bills wouldn't have to worry about paying the guy, Gabe Davis would have never left. It's not like Stephon Diggs where it had nothing to do with money and it had everything to do with this just isn't working out. This just is no longer a mutually beneficial relationship. We gotta go our separate ways here. My whole point is the Bills now have him back for nothing. Jacksonville takes on that contract and they pay an exorbitant amount of money to get off of that contract. In many ways, I think it's a massive indictment on Trevor Lawrence. But the one thing I do know is that Gabe Davis earned that contract catching the football from Josh Allen. Gabe Davis is 26 years old? It's not like he's 33 on the way out the door to retirement. This guy's still got games left in him, man. This guy's still got ball left in him. 26 years old is Gabe Davis. I think there's more here than just, you picked up Gabe Davis off the street to add to the squad. Are we forgetting the moments Gabe Davis had on this football team? I'm not sitting here trying to tell you that Gabe Davis is going to come in here and it's going to look like the Bills just acquired Randy Moss at the trade deadline. I'm not sitting here telling you that Gabe Davis is going to come in here and all of a sudden you're going to watch Josh Allen rattle off 400 yards and four plus touchdowns a week. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is in a year where you have pretty much no stability at the wide receiver position, you have question marks all over the place. You're wondering what the hell is going on with your second round pick. Your top wide receiver right now is Khalil Shakir, whose bulk share of yardage comes off of yards after the catch. Your by far best receiver on this entire team is a tight end. With all these question marks, the inability to throw the ball down the field, all of this stuff. With all of this stuff in mind, how is this not a massive addition? And when I say massive, once again, I'm not talking about going from day to night here or night to day or whatever. I'm just talking about being improvement. I'm talking about adding improvement that was needed. And even though he had a 3-catch, 40-yard game, it was his first game back off of an injury, first game back with this team. I think that there's going to be something there. You got Josh Palmer back healthy. Tyrell Shavers in his first ever real opportunity to have an impact on this team goes nuts. You get the running backs involved in the pass game. I just think you saw some stuff against the Bucs that if replicated and if built upon can really have this team go a long way from just removing themselves from just constantly being ripped for not having anybody to throw the ball to. I'm excited about it. Once again, I don't think it's this revolutionary addition. But you have to keep in mind that Gabe Davis earned a contract so lucrative that Bean had to move off of him because of what he was able to produce with Josh Allen. Just because they had to move off of him doesn't mean the ability to produce with Josh Allen goes away or they wanted it to go away. And then I want to see more of Shavers, man. I want to see more of Shavers. And what I want to see more than anything is I want to see more touches for these running backs in the pass game. That's what I want to see more than anything. Because I just don't think it's done enough. And I think when they've done it, does it not always work? You go back to the Baltimore game, that incredible design to get the ball to James Cook in the pass game, goes the distance for a touchdown. They just don't do it enough. In this game, you do it twice for touchdowns. I mean, you have 5 receptions in this game by running backs. 2 of them go to the house. Let's go to the Super Chats. DEO. No reason why the Bills shouldn't make a playoff run this year. The team that's had our number for years looks broken. Every team so far looks beatable, and that's the key. Right now, I think the Bills could be beaten by anybody in the postseason. Right now, I think the Bills could beat anybody in the postseason. Why not the Bills? Why not the Bills? This is the beauty of the NFL, and I feel like no more than this year. How many teams, how many fan bases are sitting around right now saying, why not us? Why not us? Why not New England? Why not Denver? Why not Buffalo? Why not Baltimore? Why not Pittsburgh? Why not Philly? Why not Detroit? Why not the Rams? Why not Seattle? Why not? Seriously. I can give you 100 reasons as to why not. I can give you 100 reasons as to why. I mean, really, right now, why not the Buffalo Bills? And like I mentioned, if you can find a way for 1 month, I mean, let's look at it this way. The last month, they've played 4 games. Carolina, Kansas City, Miami, Tampa Bay. If you can find a way to rattle that month off, but eliminate the performance against Miami, that's a month right there that's winning you a Super Bowl. You just cannot have the drastic falling off of a cliff that was the Miami Dolphins game. But to win the Super Bowl, more than likely, the Bills are going to have to win 4 games. Wild card, divisional, championship weekend, Super Bowl. The last month, the Bills have played 4 games. And I think that they've played Super Bowl caliber football in 3 of the 4. Once again, though, all it takes is one fourth of that month to completely ruin your year, to completely end your season. But my point here is, in a month's time, in the same amount of games that it's going to take you to win the Super Bowl, the Bills have shown you 3/4 of the way they're capable of playing Super Bowl caliber football. Mind you, 3 of those wins came against 2 guaranteed playoff teams, and 1 that maybe finds their way in Carolina. Don't look now. Carolina's a half game back of the Tampa Bay Bucks in their division. They're 6-5. Actually, I can't say Kansas City, but wow, this is weird to say. I'm so used to saying this. By the way, I can't say Kansas City's a guaranteed football playoff team. By the way, that just hit me. You can't say they are. Oh my God. How insane is that? I'm so used to just saying that like it's nothing that it just hit me like a ton of bricks. Either way, though, I think it goes without saying that it's a quality win to beat the team that's been in the AFC Championship the last what feels like 20 years in a row. I think it's 7 or 8. They have played championship caliber football team, or they have played championship caliber football 3 of the last 4 weeks. The key is, can they get to January and not have that Miami type week, not have that Atlanta type week, that New England type week? Because that's what's going to end your season. But if you play like you did against Carolina, and if you play like you did against Kansas City, and if you play like you did against Tampa, that's a team that could win the whole thing. Once again, why not Buffalo? You just cannot have the absolute 180 that was the Atlanta game or the Miami game. You can't have it, because in an instant, your season's done. I don't care who you're playing against, because you lost both those games against 2 teams that are towards the bottom of the league right now. Money, Mitch, my main man, the lead Robster, saying, Bot, congrats on your baby. Oh, appreciate you, Mitch. On November 11th, I became an uncle at 30 years old. If you ever wondered why I'm nice to you as a Penn State fan, it's because my in-laws are from PA. I will be giving my nephew OSU gear. Love you, Bot. Love you too, Mitch. I really appreciate the love. And I'll tell you what, being an uncle, one of the coolest things. I am an uncle to 6 nieces and nephews. It's one of my favorite things on the planet. I love it. I'm hanging out with those young guns all the time. It's so much fun, because you get all the reward of being a parent without having to have the responsibility of being the parent. You get to have all the fun, and then when the grunt work comes around, all right, go see mommy and daddy. It's the best. Now I'm getting the whole other perspective, now being the mommy and daddy in that situation, or being the daddy in that situation. But congrats to you, Mitch. This is your first time becoming an uncle. It's awesome. So enjoy it. It's a lot of fun, and spoil them because you get to do that. You know what I mean? You get to do that without any repercussions. You get to spoil them, and then you give them a bunch of candy. You don't have to deal with the sugar high. You know what I mean? The real saying, what is Z-Bot doing on? Yeah, I know. I got to wrap this up. By the way, it's going a little long. I didn't even have a game plan. I just wanted to come on and rant a little bit. You know what I mean? Which, by the way, I hope I didn't upset. Who was that earlier? Who is this right here? This guy right here. I got to go back. I feel like this guy, I've seen him comment before. I think this guy just hates me. Which I love, by the way, the people that when they hate you, but they're somehow in here live. It's one thing to like come hate on me. Like after the show's over, you stumbled on it in your algorithm, you pop on. Even then, I'm like, it doesn't make sense to me. Like we're live right now. So yeah, I wanted to come on and rant to the chagrin of Mark here. But I do need to get wrapping up soon. I just realized I've been on here for an hour, and I told Caroline I'd be on here for a half an hour. I want to talk about Keon Coleman before we wrap up. Dio. And can we talk about the defense yesterday? Third string running back, like a top five back. Any running back want to have a career game, should roll out the red carpet, and you're 100% right. Look, here's the deal. You got to accept it. This is who the Buffalo Bills are on the run D. It's who they are. They have allowed the Dolphins to do this. They have allowed the Ravens to do this. They have allowed the Tampa Bay Bucs to do this. They have allowed the Atlanta Falcons to do this. This is who they are. This isn't going to end. This is why, to me, the worst possible draw that the Bills could get in the postseason right now is the Colts. I don't care if Daniel Jones has the worst outing of his career. I genuinely think Jonathan Taylor could win that football game single-handedly on the offensive side of things. I think in that football game, Jonathan Taylor is to the Colts what Josh Allen is to the Bills, just based on that matchup. This is who this team is right now in the run D. You know, I literally tweeted it out yesterday. I said, it doesn't matter if you are Barry Sanders or if you're Sean Tucker, a third string undrafted running back. You are poised for a career game, like you just said. Like literally like you just said, Dio. I said the same thing. I mean, who hasn't had a career game? This is why, you know, I kind of bought into maybe some resurgence here because of the Bills' ability to shut down Chuba Hubbard and Rico Dowdle going into that game when they maybe had the best running offense in the NFL. But when I look back on it, the Bills built such a substantial lead in that game, and they also eliminated the passing game, and they sacked Andy Dalton 7 times. The Panthers never even had an opportunity to get the run game going. It just never was in the cards. The Bills just beat them in so many other facets, they couldn't run the ball. But when teams have the ability to establish the run and continue to build on that, it's worked pretty much every single time. Pretty much every single time. And more often than not, what comes with that is a 40 to 50 plus yard rushing touchdown at the minimum to inflate those numbers to holy hell. It is what it is right now. I do not foresee this magic the switch being flipped where the Bills' run defense becomes something you can count on. This is what it is. Fortunately, the Bills' passing defense has been pretty good. I mean, we are getting some exceptional play out of Cole Bishop. This is amazing to watch. He is becoming everything you hoped he was going to be when you drafted him in the second round. And when you come off of essentially a year-ending injury and you come into this year banged up again and you're wondering, is this going to work out? Because we really need it to. Wow, is it really starting to pay in dividends? 3 interceptions, 3 really big interceptions. He's looked phenomenal. You're starting to really shore up that back end. Max Hairston, sky's the limit there. I mean, seriously, we've only seen how many quarters of football from this guy? 10? Sky's the limit there. I think you've definitely seen some added maturity to this back end and some more reliability with Jordan Poyer being added into the mix. I like this pass defense right now. But the run defense is, you're going to have to take what it is. It is what it is. And I'm guessing in games like, you know, if the Bills were to draw Indianapolis or draw Baltimore, Bills offense is going to need to show up in that game because I just don't imagine you're going to have the magic pill to eliminate the impact that those teams will be able to have on the ground against you. This is why I feel like you really, you wouldn't mind drawing a Pittsburgh, or you wouldn't mind drawing a Kansas City. Now, I know what you're saying. Bah, what are you saying? Believe me, I get it. I'm just talking about simply based on the matchup. Not saying they win or lose the game. I'm just simply talking about the matchup. The Bills do not match up well with the Colts. And frankly, the Bills don't match up well with Baltimore. I don't know how they beat them. I don't know how they beat them as much as they do. I really don't. The Bills can't stop the run, and they have the best running tandem maybe ever. I don't know how the Bills beat them the way that they do. I really don't. Does anybody really know? A lot of it has to do with self-inflicted wounds by Baltimore. The Bills usually overperforming on defense in those games, and then Josh Allen usually has a pretty damn good game in almost all of those games. Dio saying, also, who hates on Z-Bot? What a loser. Hello. But I'm getting sick of Keon. Dancing on the sideline while not having a decent game since week one is laughable. Richie, by the way, saying, Richie, Bill's going to get hot at the right time. Hakuna Matata. Listen, they were hot on Sunday. Keep it rolling because you only got 3 days until you got to keep that flame lit. You're playing in 3 nights. You're playing in 72 hours from right now. The Buffalo Bills are kicking off in Houston. All right, so Dia brought up Keon Coleman. Let's talk about it before we close up here. By the way, Monday Night Football. What's going on over there? Not that I can't. I don't even care. Yeah, this game's going exactly how I anticipated. 3-3. Who the hell over at the league office said, you know what? Mid-November, I got a beautiful idea. We're already starting to talk about the playoff picture, and the seeding conversations are really going to start heating up, and divisional battles are really going to start to form. I got the perfect primetime game idea. Cowboys Raiders. In what world was that ever going to be a good decision this late into the year? Much less ever. Maybe you want to go with it maybe week 3. Oh, you got Tom Brady at the ownership. Maybe Geno Smith will be good for the Raiders, and you got Pete Carroll, and Brock Bowers is as good as it gets, and Genti, he's going to be a star. I maybe get it. Plus Dallas, they're in primetime all the time. November, did anybody not foresee this being the outcome where you have 2 teams well below 500? I don't get it. All the games this past weekend, you had Bills, Bucks, Rams, Seahawks, Chargers, Jags. I'm just thinking of Denver, Kansas City, all of those games, and you wind up with Dallas and Las Vegas whole. I mean, I'm sorry. You're a I just don't get how you make. I don't get. The NFL does so much so well. I don't get how some of these decisions end up being made. I just some of these decisions, like that decision, the virtual measurement debacle. How do some of these things get greenlit? You do so much so well to the point where you have become synonymous with the American culture. I mean, you are embedded within it. Nothing is bigger than the NFL when it comes to entertainment in the country. It's as big as it gets. I don't get how some of these things get greenlit. I just don't. You've gotten to the point where you have dominated the American culture. So you would think things like this would get weeded out. And I don't. Sometimes I'm just left scratching my head. All right, Keon Coleman. This could not have been a worse week. This could not have been a worse last couple of weeks for Keon Coleman. You go into the trade deadline and everyone's pounding the table, wanting Brandon Beane to make a move for wide receiver because you currently have not seen enough production from your first pick 2 drafts ago at that position to rely on him being the answer at wide receiver. The majority of this fan base has pitchforks out after the trade deadline because Brandon Beane did not add a receiver. You wouldn't be doing that if you felt as though Keon Coleman was the answer right now. You have Steve Smith come out with a 30-minute long podcast dedicated solely to analyzing and critiquing Keon Coleman. You have really you have not had any production from Keon Coleman that has moved the needle for this team in any given game outside of the second half of the Baltimore Ravens game week 1. You then have that footage come out of Keon Coleman. And once again, Steve, I've said this on other shows. Stevie Johnson's defending him. I've seen guys defending him. It's a dummy route, and he's walking down the field. That doesn't kill me. But listen, I can't deny that narratives are being created, whether they're justifiable or not. That video was going all over the place on social media, and everybody and their mother had something to say about it. Whether he was being lazy on the play or not, I mean, I'll leave that up to the coaches to decide or him to tell you. But what I can't control or what I can't deny is that narratives are being created surrounding it. And you just add that to the pile. But that's just, I mean, it's not that that's a big thing. It's just one more thing to add to what seems to be an ever-growing list of questions surrounding Keon Coleman. And then you go into this weekend and you're without Dalton Kincaid, and it feels like Keon Coleman is going to be the guy that you just need something from. You also factor in that they add Gabe Davis, and then they also add McCole Hardman off the street. And once again, I don't think you do this if you feel like you have trust in what your wide receiver room is currently. You then show up late to a meeting on Friday. Mistakes happen. Everybody makes them, and not everybody's the best version of themselves on a 24-hour basis. From day to day, you're going to get different versions of people, and it's not always going to be the best. Everybody makes mistakes, and everybody slips up, and everybody has a bad day. You were the first pick for this team 2 drafts ago, and you were given a yellow brick road to become the number 1 wide receiver for one of the best quarterbacks to ever play. Stephon Diggs out, Coleman in. You are now being given the opportunity to become the go-to guy for a future first ballot Hall of Famer. And it has not become what you were hoping it was going to be. Not only are you lacking on the production, but you are now looking at the 3rd disciplinary action taken on Keon Coleman for off the field issues. And this is where to me, you're losing it. You're losing me here. I said it on the post-game show. I am not happy with off the field stuff from anybody. I don't care if it's the last guy to make the 53 or if it's your first overall pick. I do not like this stuff. It doesn't look good on the organization, and it's not fair to your teammates. And it just shows me that your head's not all the way in it. It just shows me that you're not 100% bought in. People will argue against that, saying, oh, whatever, it happens. Yeah, I just got through saying that. This is now the 3rd time. And in baseball, you don't get 7 strikes until you go back to the dugout. You get 3. And you're going into this football game in a massive must-win game. I shouldn't say, you know what I mean. You're going into a massive football game, 2 6-3 teams. You're chasing the top of the AFC. You're chasing the Patriots in the division. You're trying to bounce back off of a terrible loss. This is where you would imagine your 2nd-round wide receiver drafted to be the future of the position to be a guy that you're going to rely on when your top target in Dalton Kincaid's out. And he's not on the field for disciplinary issues. And I'll tell you this right now, and maybe Sean McDermott wouldn't admit it, but this is how this is my take on it. If Keon Coleman right now is hovering around 1,000 yards receiving this year in 7 or 8 touchdowns, does Sean McDermott put his foot down and not play Keon Coleman in this game? I don't think so. I think the decision is a lot easier to make when the production just flat out hasn't been there. There's nothing worse to me than not living up to the billing of being the first pick for this team in the draft, then compounding that with doing things off the field that result in your 3rd disciplinary action taken on you. And then you see after the game, he's asked about it, and he's flat out asked if there's a lesson to be learned here. And he said no. You guys can read that however you want. I don't know how the answer isn't a resounding yes, the major lesson to be learned here. I know he said, I got to be better. I know he said that. I don't understand how you're asked, is there a lesson to be learned here? And you don't say, yes, absolutely. Beyond all of this, though, the worst thing that could have possibly happened in this whole situation for him, not only have you not been playing well and you've not been producing, and Josh Allen clearly does not seem to have any element of trust in you. Not only all that, You add in the third disciplinary action to result in now you not playing a full game. The disciplinary action before that, there was one game where he missed a drive for disciplinary issues. There was one game where he missed a quarter. Now we're at full game territory, and it wasn't like you were playing the 0-16 version of the Carolina Panthers or the 0-16 version of the Detroit Lions from years past. You're playing a 6-3 division-leading Bucs team with an offense that's been struggling to throw the football. The worst thing that could have happened here, though, is what happened. Not only have you not been producing and you get healthy scratched for being late to a meeting, your third time being disciplined, but in the game in which you miss, they score 44 points. Josh Allen has 6 touchdowns. The guy who was far from being a lock to make the team at their receiver position, and Tyrell Shavers, leads the way with 4 catches, 90 yards, and a touchdown. The guy who just got added to this team in his first game back, and Gabe Davis, has 3 for 40, which has basically been what the stat line's been for Keon Coleman. You have 2 receivers have a better day than what Coleman has done on a routine basis throughout the season. To me, the worst thing that could have happened, though, if I'm Keon Coleman here, is what Tyrell Shavers went in and did in this football game. I mean, if we're looking at Keon Coleman's stat line this year, what Tyrell Shavers did against the Tampa Bay Bucks is better than any game that Keon Coleman has had the entire season outside of week 1. Keon Coleman has not gone over 46 yards once this entire season outside of week 1. Keon Coleman has not had 4+ receptions in more than 2 games this entire year. 2 games this year with 4+ receptions. 1 game this year, 90+ yards. And in 1 outing where Tyrell Shavers finally seems to get a fair shake or a fair amount of opportunities, 4 catches, 90 yards, a touchdown. So I got to tell you, man, I think that there's some self-reflecting that's probably being done over at One Bills Drive. How could there not be? You're sitting there, and not only are you not feeling good about the fact that you've had to put your foot down and bench the guy for disciplinary reasons, but in doing so, you go out and this team drops 44, and you have a guy in Tyrell Shavers go and do more than Keon Coleman has done in the last 2.5 months. And this might suck to hear, and I got to tell you, it sucks to say. When the Bills drafted Keon Coleman, all I wanted was for this guy to become a homegrown stud at the position. The Bills haven't had it with Josh Allen. The guys that have been best for Josh Allen have been added from on the outside. Stephon Diggs, Cole Beasley, John Brown. I was dying for the Bills to have a homegrown wide receiver 1. I wanted this to work out so bad. And maybe it does at some point here. But up until this point, it's safe to say it's been a failed experiment. And I'm factoring in the off the field stuff. I mean, who else is at their 3rd strike here? You're 1.5 years into your career. How are you on your 3rd strike? And then you're sitting here telling me that there's not a lesson to be learned? And I'm hoping to God he just misheard the question. I don't know. But to me, the biggest indictment here is the fact that not only have you not been producing, and you factor in having to be benched for disciplinary reasons, but Tyrell Shavers, who was fighting for his life to make this roster 4 months ago, comes out and produces more than Keon Coleman has since September 7th of this season. I wonder what the Bills do on Thursday. I'm dying to see. I'm very interested to see. I was on the Bills roundtable earlier, and we all agreed, if it isn't broke, why would you fix it? I don't understand how there's no world to me where you can look Tyrell Shavers in the face after that performance on Sunday, or Gabe Davis, knowing the rapport that he has with Josh Allen, knowing the trust Josh Allen has in him. I don't think you can look at either of those guys and say, we're reducing your targets and your snap count for Coleman. I don't know how you can do that. How can you do that off of a 44-point performance? And I don't want to be sitting here talking about this. I hate this. I'm just shooting it as I see it here, really. I don't know how you can really look at it any other way. This is the last. These are the last. This is. I'll just rattle off every game here. Coleman's. It's 3 for 46, 2 for 17, 3 for 30, 3 for 11, 4 for 23, 3 for 45, 3 for 20, 3 for 26. 8 for 112 in that week 1 game against Baltimore. You're thinking, oh, it's happening. You heard Deion Dawkins in the offseason. Look out, NFL. Here comes Keon Coleman. You're hearing the reports from training camp. Whoa, look out. Keon Coleman's looking good. You see that stat line, that performance against Baltimore. You're amped. You're hyped. It hasn't even come close to that once again. It hasn't sniffed that once. And in one outing, where Tyrell Shavers gets his chance to shine, boom, 490 and a touchdown. Not good. It's just, if I'm Coleman, man, like, I don't know. I don't know. You can read into it how you want. You know, you see him dancing before the game. Like, I don't know. To me personally, if I had just gotten benched for a full game for disciplinary reasons, I probably wouldn't be dancing before the football game. And I saw plenty of people defending him. Well, what do you want him to do? Be pissed on the sideline? I'm not saying you want him to sit over there and cry. But I got to tell you, if I just got benched by my coach for being late to a meeting after I haven't had a really good season at all, and I've had nothing but questions thrown my way all season long, I've had nothing but, what are we going to do at the wide receiver position? Be thrown around in every television show and podcast and radio show in the country in terms of talking about Buffalo and what they're doing offensively, because that production has not been there. I have all these things benched for disciplinary reasons. I think the last thing I'm probably doing is dancing before the game. And then post game, when I'm asked about whether or not there's a lesson to be learned here, and I say no. And then on top of that, I got a guy fighting for his life on the in the preseason, and Tyrell Shavers comes in, assumes my role essentially, or what my role was supposed to be, and goes 490 and a touchdown, better than anything I've done since week 1 of the season. I don't really know how it could be much worse. So that's that. And listen, I'll just do it. Richie's saying, you know, do we move off of Coleman in the offseason? I don't know. That's the last thing I think that they want to do. Do you think Brandon Beane wants to admit to this type of failure here 2 years into a second-round draft pick? They didn't have a first-rounder that year. That was their first pick. Or they did have a first rounder. They traded back. They traded back into the second round. That was their first pick. I mean, do you think Brandon Beane wants to admit to this failure 2 years in? I don't know what's going to happen there. But I'll just say this. I don't think this could look worse. Sonny saying, hello from Alaska. Go Bills. Congrats on the new baby. Thank you, Sonny, so much. So to answer that question real quick, because speaking of that baby, I got to get going. I'm running a little late here, and I saw a comment here that made me laugh. Where was it? Yeah, it was Steve here. See, about how you doing all these podcasts with a 5-day-old going to end up on the couch? I am. So I got to wrap this up, seriously. But one last thing I'll say is this. I don't want to have to move off the guy. And I wanted it to work. I want it to work. I'm just talking about what's happened up until this point. I would love to see a 180. I would love to see this guy be completely bought in. And we never hear of a disciplinary action being taken on him ever again because it's not necessary. And we see him become a trustworthy target for Josh Allen. And we see the production in the stat sheet. We see him being a guy that can be relied upon on this offense. I love all of it. But up until this point, I just don't think that there's an argument to be had that is in the future here. And based on what we've seen, it's one thing to not be producing and hoping you see that down the bend. But when you're adding in disciplinary actions, and when you're also adding in guys that were, once again, fighting for a roster spot coming in and assuming a role that you have not assumed in 2.5 months, it's really hard to justify getting you back on the field. And it's really hard to justify having you be showcased as the top receiver when it just hasn't been that. And that is that. On the way out the door, I want you to check out my friends over at Sleeper. Build yourself a sleeper slip. The link is in the description below. You click that, you sign up. Once you do, you will get a free $20 entry. You can use that on Thursday Night Football for the Bills game. You can use that in any game this upcoming weekend, or you can use it on the NBA, NHL, you name it. Link in the description below. Click it. Sign up for Sleeper. Boom. Once you make an account, free $20 entry. Once you've used that entry, use the promo code on your screen, BF25. That will get you a 100% match up to $100 on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper terms of use for details. Currently available in over 25 states. Check out Sleeper via the link in the description below today. We'll be back with you all throughout the week. Rico, Tuesday night, and then Thursday. Pre-game, during the game, post-game. It's Buffalo Bills football early this week on Thursday Night Football, taking on the Houston Texans on the road in a massive AFC showdown. So we're looking forward to it. But in the meantime, I look forward to seeing you then, and I hope you do have an extraordinary rest of your Monday evening. On the way out the door, like button if you could, subscribe button if you could. And that's going to do it for a Monday iteration of the Smoke Break, fresh off of a W over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. An hour and a half in the books. Look forward to seeing you on Thursday night. Until then, much love as always, and go Bills.